Yes, welcome everyone. Today at Cine Fusion, we have a special guest for this podcast. He's a writer who has touched every heart of a household boy preparing for competitive, a man who has emotional connection to love with reality and his realistic concepts of writing. He is Mr. Abdullah Khan. Welcome, Khan sir, to this podcast.
Thank you. Thanks
Uh,
for having me here.
Really, it's a pleasure talking to you, sir, and our literary audience and cinema audience would love to hear your voice in this podcast. Actually, the concept we are about to explore today is the relation between books and cinemas, sir. So, in this session, we are going to run through the literary aspect of cinema and the cinematic aspect of literature. The first thing I would like to ask you is that how do you see books and cinema in your perspective, sir?
Uh, we all know that storytelling is the basic needs of a human being. After food, security, and shelter, we always look for the stories. After food, shelter, companionship, these are the basic needs. After that, what we want is the story. So a story is something which has started quite early, and there are different way to tell the story, different form of the story. Nautanki, natak, dastan goi, songs, pictorial representation of stories, comics, everything started coming out. So when it comes to the literature and cinema, these are the two very important mode of telling a story.
Sir,
So medium is different, but the story is the same. So if you think of a story in the form of the moving pictures, then obviously the language will change. You can't describe things in a film which you can do in a written book. So both have different grammar, different language, different way to represent it. For example, you cannot use the baritone of a actor in a literary book. The same way, you cannot describe the what is going on inside the head of a character in a film. It will become boring. So both are uh, obviously different medium, and both should be given the different treatment. We cannot say that a literary adaptation should be the copy of the book or a film. Uh, Sometimes we also translate a film into a literary book also. So obviously it becomes a bit different from the film. So this is how it goes.
yes, sir, that's a very pleasant answer, sir. Sir, as you see, literature is an expression of a man to convey something that might be an emotion or a message or a philosophy. And these also generally become part of film also. But as you said, the grammar in terms of a literary representation and a cinematic representation differ. How do you define literary writing and screenwriting, and how do you differentiate these two, sir?
I don't think that we have to define both the writing uh, as a matter of definition. So I don't think there is no need to define it, but they are different.
Sure.
Obviously, in case of literary thing, this is the final product. Whatever you are writing, it is going to be consumed by the your readers, the final end user. But in case of the film, screenwriting is the only kind of a prop, kind of a help for a filmmaker or a director or an actor to create something. So that is not the final product. That is a kind of raw material, or you can say the ingredients for a actor or a director. So that is the basic difference. In the literature, whatever you write, it goes to the audience, to readers. But in case of cinema, whatever you write is not exactly in the end as it is. It is going to be shown to the uh, cinegoers or the viewers. It will go through the drastic change, the way the directors interpret it, the way the actors represent it. So, for example, one character where Mahesh Babu is playing the main character, same character he will play in a different way. And if Junior NTR is there, he will do the same character in a different way. So, difference will be verifiable. You can see the difference. Same story, same screenplay. Same way, if director is different, the short divisions will be different. The music will be different. The background, the score will be different. So, same product, but it will look different if the creative person involved in those products, yeah, those projects are different. So that is the basic difference.
Yes, that was very well put, sir. Sir, in terms of the concept of books and cinema, mostly many of the cinemas in the past have been adapted from books. For example, Harry Potter of J.K. Rowling and many spy documentaries, spy fiction, and Mario Puzo's Godfather have been adapted. When such adaptation has been made into a cinema, and do you think the role of a writer of a book ends there, or do you think it begins there to manifest it as a visual art, sir?
It depends, friend. It depends, and every writer will react in a different way. I got chance to talk to many writers whose books were converted into a successful cinematic experience. For example, Salam Dog Millionaire writer, I talked to him. Vikram Chandra, I got chance to talk to the Vikram Chandra, Sacred Game.
Sir.
So every writer has a different take. Every writer will react in a different way. It depends upon the writer and the director.
Sir.
So many writers would not like to associate it with the cinema, and those writers who are not comfortable with the screenwriter or screenwriting, and they don't want to be involved, they will generally uh, just give the book uh, and just step out. So that is how it happens in some cases. In some cases, writers are uh, very well versed in this other form of writing. I know many novelists who are also accomplished screenwriters, so they would like to write the script of their own novel, maybe with the help of other writers or the director. And it also depends upon the how far you want to go with the new version of your novel. For example, there are many books which were adopted in a film form as it is. For example, if you go for the book like Gone with the Wind, so it is a very faithful adaptation of the book, and it is almost uh, copied from page to page. So, but in all books, it is not possible. Some books are written in a different way. Some books are very difficult to adapt, and some books has a content or a topic or a story which will not look good in a cinematic form. So then directors would like to make changes. So how comfortable you are to allow your book to be altered, changed as per needs of the producer or director. For example, Slumdog Millionaire book and film are totally different. The core idea is taken from the book, but the film is totally different. The name of the character has been changed, and the story is totally different from whatever has been written by the author. In Sacred Games, some minor changes have been made. So this is how it works. It depends whether you want to be involved, whether you want to intervene. Many writers would not mind. They will just give the book to the director and allow them to do whatever they want. So I know cinematic writing is a totally different from the literary writing. I know There will be changes. I know something has to be left out, something has to be added to make an interesting movie. But my idea is that soul of the book should not be altered. The basic idea of book should not be discarded. If Patna Blues is about a struggle of a middle class boy, it should be like that. Some minor changes here and there to make it interesting or dramatic is okay, fine. So, but it depends. Many writers don't mind if entire thing is changed. Even name of the characters are changed. So they don't mind. Even the setting are changed. Some people will change the story is set in Patna, they will set in some other city. So those kind of changes are not acceptable to me, but some changes to make it cine friendly or screen friendly, okay, fine. I know that. It cannot be filmed as it is.
Yes, sir. That's really well put, sir. Sir, in terms of adaptation of books to cinema, I think Hollywood did it many years back. In 1970s, the year of summer blockbusters and everything, many of the adaptations have been well put as a cinema in Hollywood. But in terms of Indian cinema, the adaptations haven't been so vast as it had been in Western culture. Do you think it's time to consider the era of adaptation of books into cinema and frame the stories of books cinematically so that it would be a new generation of filmmaking, sir?
You are right, because Hollywood was very quick to adopt the literatures into the cinema. Even during the silent era, we had Alice Adventure in Wonderland in 1903. Then Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Then Christmas Carol, Frankenstein, Tarzan, and so many books. Uh, So in early 20th century, they had a lot of books converted into the cinema even during the silent era. But in Bollywood, it was not a kind of trend that you should adopt the book. But there were many good literary books which were adopted. I am not, sorry, I don't have much knowledge of Indian cinema in other languages. But I'm sure that in Hindi, there are many novels of Premchand
Sir.
were uh, adapted in the cinema. For example, Gaban and many others. I don't recall all the names.
Sir.
And there was one popular writer called Gulshan Nanda. He was a pulp fiction writer. He used to write romantic family drama kind of stories. So he was very popular. And in 60s and 70s, almost all of his books were adapted as a film. For example, Pale Khan, Neel Kamal. These were the books by the Gulshan Nanda, which was made into a film and very successful film, not ordinary. All of them, most of them were blockbuster.
Sir.
So there was a kind of tradition of adopting books into a cinema.
Sir.
In Bangla, Satyajit Ray did with the novel like Pather Panchali, the classic. It is an adaptation of a novel. So we had, but especially in the 80s and 90s, and still we are not looking at the book for stories, which is a good source of stories because every producer you meet will tell you that they are looking for the good stories because content is the key. But thus we have a treasure trove of stories lying in the library, but they are not going that way. But now things are changing. Now I see There are many agencies, many production companies. They have dedicated team to read the book for possible screen adaptation. But still, it is not a very common thing. Very few books are being adopted. So, hope in the near future, many more books will be converted into a screenplay, and then it will become a cinema, a good cinema.
Yes, sir. That was very insightful, sir. But coming to the follow-up point on that, actually, mostly many of the writers the cinema has seen or the world of literature has seen, once their books have been made into cinema, the audience of that writer or that novelist have grown bounds. And recently, in a Boston Book Festival, there was a statement made that cinema is a 2 hour ad for a book. Do you think cinema serves as a, what do you say, the publicity criteria or the publicity dimension as for a book? Or do you think once the cinema is made, the so-called writer gains the charisma once his book has been adapted as cinema, sir?
So, it is kind of a very difficult question to answer, but it is obvious. Cinema has a large number of audience. A book cannot match.
Sure.
A successful book can have a 1 million readers, 2 million readers, but a successful cinema can have 1 billion viewers. So, if you are able to get your book to a large number of audience, it is expected that many of them will return to bookstore, and they are likely to pick up your book. And there are proofs that once a book is uh, adapted as a cinema, so people get interested in those books. Even those who have not seen that movie, they will simply say, "Oh, this book was made into film." That means that this book might be very interesting or very engaging. Otherwise, why the producer will pick up this for adaptation? So this kind of publicity you get, and obviously, book gets more readership. Many people who watch cinema after that, they will read the book.
Yes, sir. Got it, sir. Uh, Actually, in terms of book, when it has been adapted into cinema, coming to the concept of detailing, I believe book has more detailing than a cinema, and it could engage readers beyond cinema. Do you believe adaptation of book as it is into a cinema is important, and the writer should have a say when the adaptation is made, sir?
It depends, yeah. The kind of book you are writing can can be adapted as it is into cinema. It is also possible, the kind of writing you are doing. But sometimes your book is very abstract in nature, or the way it has been presented cannot be made into a cinema. So there are many books where if you read, you will wonder if this can be adapted into cinema, but some director, brilliant director will come, and then you are surprised how beautifully he has converted it into a moving picture. So it depends. And uh, if you are going for a cinematic adaptation, so you cannot have all the say in that matter, because the producer is investing millions and billions of rupee. So obviously the director will be at the driving seat. But as I told you earlier, the soul of the story should not be altered. So, but basically, once you give it to the production company, sell it cinematic rights, obviously it is not in your hand. You can get into the litigation, changing the story, mm, and in most cases they ask you to waive the moral right. once you have the moral rights of the story, they are free to make changes. You can't sue them. So it is very difficult. Okay. In some cases, it can be close to the story. In some cases, it might be the totally different. So there are adaptations where only 10% of the story has been taken from the book. But there are books where almost everything in the book is in the film. So it may vary from 10% to 90%. 100% adaptation is basically not possible because, for example, you describe a scene, you just say he is walking in a park, but when a director visualize the same scene, so he will add many things. It is not there in the book because in camera you have to show everything. But in your novel, you just decide to show something, some part of. For example, you are describing a park. You are not adding everything. You are describing a room. You are not everything. Discussed earlier, the cinema and the books are the two different creatures. So the way they treat the story, the way they present the story, are obviously different from each other. So it is not possible to adopt the book as it is if we try to create something interesting.
Sir.
And the level of involvement a writer should have in the screen adaptation of their book can vary widely, and it often depends on several factors,
Sir.
including the writer's contractual agreements, their willingness to be involved, and the preferences of the filmmakers and the production houses. So it depends. Some authors have a strong vision for how they want their work to be adapted. They may have a specific ideas about casting, location, even a screenplay itself. So in such cases, they may seek a more active role in the adaptation process. Sometimes the contract is skewed in favor of the producer, then you can't do much. But a successful adaptation is something where the both are equally happy. So often a kind of collaboration, give and take kind of thing. So collaboration can be beneficial as it allows for a blending of creative perspective and a deep understanding of the source material. Authors may be consulted during the screenwriting process or invited to provide input or key creative decisions. Filmmaking is a different medium, of course, and it is different from the writing. So it requires a unique set of talent and skill. Authors may not be that competent. They may not be able to understand how the cinematic adaptation will work. So those decisions should be uh, left to the directors or those creative person who are uh, handling this cinematic adaptation. A balance between the author's vision and creative director choices can be challenging, but too much of authorial control can destroy the product. So, and while too little involvement may lead to the disconnect between the book and the film. So, an ideal filmmaker for me is someone who should have a deep respect for the source material and its creator. Because if you are taking a book for the adaptation, that means you feel that this book is good enough to be adapted in the film. And taking it, then changing it, making it something different, then why at the first place this director is or producer is buying this book for a cinematic adaptation? So even if the author is not directly involved, an intelligent filmmaker should try to remain faithful to the core themes and the character of the book. In some cases, the author may negotiate to have a final say on certain aspects of the adaptation, but for that, you should have to be a celebrity author. Middle grade writers or some ordinary mortals like us cannot force directors or the producer to allow us to intervene in their creative process. So it depends case to case basis.
Yes, sir. That was a really insightful answer. Sir, in terms of expression and censorship of a book or a cinema, Generally, every medium has its limitations.
Mm.
For considering few expressive philosophies or few things, books might serve as a more better medium, and cinemas might not because of the information technology rules and so on. So, when a writer has a perspective and he needs it to be expressed and to reach it to a larger audience, do you think cinema is a way or a book is a way to express it?
I think both mediums are complementary to each other. So I would not say कि one medium is better to convey the message to. But in a country like India, where many of us are not that much interested in literature, and there are barrier of language and linguistic style are also there. So obviously, it becomes easier for a cinemaker to convey their message. For example, if you see, it is not a very good example, but if you see how Lage Raho Munna Bhai, a Hindi film about Gandhi ji, was able to make many people read and talk about Gandhi's philosophy of peace and reconciliation. So Gandhigiri became a kind of very trending words in those time when the film was released. So obviously, book cinema has more reach to the common mass in comparison to books. But sometimes books do something which cinema cannot do. There are certain messages and certain ideas which can better be expressed in the form of written words. So it totally depends. As far as censorship is concerned, obviously book is something that generally the censoring people or those who are in power generally don't pay much attention to. But in case of cinema or any web series or TV, it immediately becomes a kind of sensation, and everyone is able to know that what is the wrong and right with the cinema in their point of view. So film goes to the censorship. Uh, Officially, it is not. It is a certification board, but indirectly, part of the cinema are censored or self-censored, you can say. And book, generally, book is not censored by anyone. It is just published. After publication, it may have some trouble from those authorities. But by that time, it becomes uh, accessible to everyone. So if anyone start talking about banning a book or that book is not good, or then it even becomes bestseller. So if they create a kind of hype or created a kind of problem, then book becomes a bestseller. And like cinema, you cannot go to a multiplex and protest. Book can travel from one hand to other hand secretly. So this is how the book works. But both media have their own importance, and I think both are complementary to each other.
Yes, sir. I agree, sir. Sir, do you think in this era of digitalization and in era of AI, the so-called interest towards literature is it growing? Do you think, sir, or because of the prowess of cinema, it is enjoying in this point of time and evolution? Do you think literature is losing its shine, sir?
Uh, with the changing time, obviously, we have a lot of mode where we can entertain ourselves. So earlier, mostly it was the book or the comic or the mostly written work or drama. So now we have direct competition with the OTT platform, TV and cinema, because we have limited time, and either you read a book or watch it show on any of the OTT platforms. For example, you can watch a cinema in play 2 hours, but the same book, same book you need at 5, 6 hours to read, and you have to put a lot of efforts. So, but I don't think book is going to vanish so easily, even after so much of entertainment available around the clock. Book is going to stay, and it shows during last few decades when everybody predicted that the written books are going to vanish and digital books and audio books will take place. But written books are still there. Actually, they are growing. Of course, we have lot of audio books, but these books are the only incarnation of an audio incarnation of the same book. So you can safely say this is also a kind of book uh, printed with the help of voice. So I think the book is going to stay here for next few hundred years. After that, what will happen, I cannot imagine. Maybe IA will take over and humans will not able to do anything. So that is a scary future. But right now, I think next 100 years book is going to stay in a different form, in digital form, in printed form, in audio form, in video form. Every kind of media will be used to publish the book. But book has its own charm. We still love the printed word. The smell of a freshly printed book is still intoxicating for many readers. I know many of us, including me. The book I buy first, I smell it. If it is a kind of Hyderabadi biryani. So, uh, I think book will stay here. It will not going anywhere.
That was very futuristic and a nostalgic answer, sir. And just
So,
one last question before winding up, sir.
hmm.
What do you like to say to young cinema writers and literary writers in your words, sir? Just as a suggestion, you would like to extend anything for young literary writers and cinema writers, sir?
There is one common advice to every kind of writer: read, read, and then write, and write. So keep reading, keep writing as much as possible, and try to read not only the kind of stories you are planning to write, but also try to read the books or the screenplay of other genres. For example, if you are a aspiring screenwriter, you should read one screenplay every day, at least. Not every day, every second day, you should read a script and then try to understand how the story is progressing, how the one scene is changing from one scene to the progression of one scene to other scene. And if you are a literary writer, read truckloads of book and try to understand how they are creating a story, how they are creating characters. So reading, and writing help you to become a better writer. That is the only way out. Other thing will not help you. And you also watch cinema if you are trying to write film or TV or so, whatever you are planning to write, get immersed into those things and then you will learn. After some time, you will feel you have learned without knowing that you are trying to learn. So it is better than reading how to help book. So mainly we go for the book how to write a screen and those books are also useful for basic concept or basic ideas. See, but too many of those books will destroy your writing. Better to focus on the good books and good cinema and read their screenplays, read the books, and then within a few years you will realize that now you are ready to write your script. And many books or many script you have to write before you are actually ready to write the real book. So don't be uh, deterred by this kind of challenges. तो जो करना है वो करना है और करने के लिए जो पहले हुआ है उसे देखना है. You have to see and read जो आपसे पहले करके गए. That is the only advice. Thank you.
Sure, sir. It was really a pleasure talking to you, sir. We look forward for your more literature and screenwriting. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.